Landed property design secrets that seriously raise capital value, formerly kept secrets unless you were the client. 10 steps to ensure your property's capital value is raised. Spatial balance.
In point number 2, I talked about spatial planning, and that was really the start of how to bring up the value, capital appreciation of your property. And also talked about the indoor-outdoor spaces, the likelihood of balancing between 70-30 to 60-30 between indoor and outdoor, and the connection, extending that space visually all the way up to the boundary line or the boundary wall of the property. Now, in point number 4, I'm going to talk about spatial components and connectivity. I'm going to reinforce more on those points, but more importantly to bring out the discussion about the actual spaces that goes in our house. And after that, in a different video, I'm going to explain to you the qualities that you need to achieve in each spatial use, right? So in point number 4, I want to again repeat the point of connectivity of indoor-outdoor spaces, but more importantly, I'm going to bring in a new layer of consideration, and that is the public and the private space. Now, when we architects talk about public and private spaces, when we say public, we mean those spaces that you don't mind having friends and relatives come in to your house to enjoy with you, like your living room, your dining, and maybe even your family room, and also especially your outdoor patios where you're going to have a nice dinner. But the ones that are what we consider private spaces are the ones which are more intimate, like your bedrooms and your bathrooms, right? And you probably won't want your friends and relatives walking to them unless they are very, very close to you. So we have to try to interplay between the indoor-outdoor spaces, the public and private areas, as well as to see how we can also bring in light and ventilation into the space. Because today, we want a house that's well connected with the outdoors. Yeah. You're able to have the option to shut off the outdoor, but at the same time allow the outdoor to permeate through the house. So in architecture planning, we normally look at air, light, and ventilation. So in ventilation, we want the air to just move across the house and shut it off when you want to, but to open it whenever you want to as well. Now, the other one is, of course, sunlight. Sunlight is a great thing because it brings in light, but at the same time, it brings in heat in the tropics. Now, if you're living in the West or you're living in the temperate zone where you want to have heat come in winter, that's where you want to have the sun as well to come in, because the sunlight brings along with it heat. But in summer, you probably want to cut down a bit of the heat, but still bring in the light. And that's where we face that situation in Singapore, because we're always tropical and always filled with sunlight most of the days in the year, except when there's a thunderstorm or rains, then it gets cooler. But if not, the sun brings in a lot of heat, and therefore we want to have the light come in, but not the heat in Singapore. So it's important to know how to take control of these parameters and make sure that the house blends between indoor-outdoor, is environmentally controlled properly. There's a good separation between private and public. Let me now talk about the hierarchy of spaces within the house, and then talk about the connectivity between them and how they're exposed to views on the outside of the house. Now, the hierarchy of the house is such that when you first enter it, you probably come in from the driveway, right? So you want to have a wide frontage, as I mentioned, and then when you get into the house from the driveway, you want to see a very wide frontage where the living room is as well. Now, living rooms are great when they are like double-story voids where you can feel the height of the ceiling from the floor up to the top and giving you a view into the second floor, where it could be a balustrade across the second floor. That makes a really nice picturesque living area when you first come in. But this is not a hard and fast rule. Of course, some people would prefer to have a living room that's kind of like cozy when you get in there. It doesn't open up into the actual house area until you walk further inside. But I would say it's always good to start with a living room that's very grand and has a sense of presence, and you know that it's a place where people can mingle around, you can throw a party, and from the living area it has connection to the outdoor area where it could be a sheltered covered patio where the party can spill out from the living room into the garden. I designed a home whereby the house had a front public component and a back private component, and right in between was a swimming pool with a bridge linking from the front to the back components between the more public and the private, and both having a view in the swimming pool. And that's a really great configuration, because then both components can actually enjoy the view into the swimming pool, especially when it's a very long configured house. So depending on the configuration of the house, you want to take advantage of the living room to first be the space in which the guest approaches, and from there he goes more and more from the public into a more intimate private space, right? So naturally next to the living room will be the dining area, right? And then from the dining area, it's also linking to outdoor patio, and then behind the dining will be the kitchen. Or if you have an open, dry kitchen, that's where your dining and your kitchen might actually merge in as one, so that your guests and yourself can actually enjoy a space that's larger without a wall. And that's what modern houses are designed like. There's no space between the living, the dining, the kitchen, so that then the whole space becomes one contiguous large area for you to enjoy. And then you have all kinds of different furniture styles that you can put in there, and arrangements where you can put pockets of more intimate spaces where friends can mingle or have a small little discussion. And whereas there might be a big sofa thrown in one area, where there's a part where you have a beautiful light sculpture coming down, or maybe a chandelier that can come in and complement the whole space. All these small little touches that will add to that larger space, and also screens that will help to break down that space into more sculptured, intimate spaces, but still a very much larger space by not putting up walls. It's a good thing in a modern home, and it's continuity with a full height window or door that links to the outdoors. So naturally after that, we're talking about more intimate spaces, right? Which intimate spaces, which are the private spaces, can actually be located upstairs or more to the rear of the house. But when the rear of the house is not appealing, then I would suggest that you put your intimate spaces on the second level. Most jurisdictions around the world will allow you to have a second floor, but may not allow you a third floor. So if you are in a jurisdiction which you're only allowed to do one floor, then I would say try as much as possible to put your rooms around the living area, right? I came into a house once where it's owned by a very, very wealthy individual. And when you enter in the house, which is a wide frontage, you actually walk over koi ponds, over small little bridges into a living area, and then the bedrooms are separated from the living area by a buffer zone, like a family area, and then before you hit the bedrooms. And that's because they only have one floor. But if you have 2 stories, then it's a lot easier to demarcate between the public and the private areas. Now, the other elements that are very important in the house are the staircase, because the staircase really adds the sense of connectivity and grandeur. And that's why a lot of architects use that as an element of statement in hotels, where the staircase is just basically oversized. But why? Because it gives that sense of grandeur, that you're elevating yourself upwards, right? Because people like the sense of looking up, and therefore the staircase gives that sense of connectivity. So later on, we'll talk a bit more about the other components within the house. But what else can we do with the house? Now, you have the ground floor, you have the second floor, you may have a third floor. How about the attic? Now, if you have a roof that gives you the potential of putting up an attic, that's where you can do a lot of things with the attic. The attic can be another area of a family room. It can even be a bedroom. Gone are the days where people actually put a storeroom on the roof attic, because it's become so prime. Land has become smaller. In the Sentosa houses that we designed, the roof attic has now become one of the primary spaces that occupants want to spend their time on, because it's on a high level, and especially a view onto the canal where the marina is. It's a wonderful place to have an indoor-outdoor space, as well as the master bedroom position up there. Gone are the days where roof attics are used as storerooms, and now the roof level, and with the attic on the back, where it's kind of like a half roof or a full roof concept whereby you can put some of your bathrooms on the back of the bedroom area, but with the bedroom area facing the views is actually a good configuration. So try to see if your jurisdiction allows you to use the rooftop as a place to put a functional space like a bedroom, a living space, a bar area, a family room, a large balcony. Those are good ways of using the roof attic level. Now, as for a basement is wonderful if you are putting a garage in the ground. I know there's some people that like to showcase their cars and therefore they park in the road on the ground level where the car driveway and the porch is. That's fine. But at the same time, some people will find that putting an additional car into the basement as a garage is also a good thing. But if you put a garage in the basement, just remember that mechanical ventilation is absolutely necessary. But I want to share with you better ways of using the basement. In the Sentosa houses that are designed, okay, the basements have been used for many different functions. It can be for a music room, it can be for a gym, an entertainment room, and for a wine cellar. We designed a house whereby the owner had about 3,000 bottles of fine wine placed in the cellar, and because it's in the ground, the ability to keep it cool without the sun hitting the cellar actually lowers down your cost of electricity and power. So it was really a good place to put it. And where they put that cellar, they had a beautiful bar downstairs together with a home entertainment cineplex, a small little theaterette with about 25 seating. Okay, because they want that to be a public space whereby they can bring their friends and relatives to enjoy the space, so they can then wine, dine, and at the same time watch a wonderful movie in the basement. So the bigger the basement it is, the more expensive it is. As you know, well, actually the cost of constructing a basement is typically about 1.5 to 2 times the cost of building anything above ground. So you would want to still be able to manage the area of the basement so that it doesn't go out of hand. You want to be able to make sure you put in the things that you really feel are necessary in the basement. I would suggest definitely like your theaterette, the sound room, where you're going to control acoustics and you're going to control temperature, like the wine cellar. Those are the things that you want to put into the ground. But other than that, things where spaces where you want to appreciate the view, the air moving across the house, the light and ventilation, I would suggest they are upstairs, above ground, on the ground, second story, or the third story. Okay, so that kind of concludes the 4th point of spatial components and connectivity. I'm going to go very much into detail on each of these specific rooms in later videos, so I won't be covering it here. But just know that if you are located indoor-outdoor spaces, make sure that they are well connected and use a lot of landscaping, right? Use screening with landscaping and provide a lot of spatial continuity all the way to the boundary wall, and make sure that there's no obstruction so that the space looks larger. And if possible, increase the height of the ceilings where it's okay to do that. And that's where the skill set of an architect will come in and help you interplay between all the different spaces. Because one of the major challenges is to make sure that all the spaces are kind of coupled together, right? And they are still interacting with one another in the right way. They look good on the inside of the building as well as on the outside of the building. And this is where the skill set comes in. And above that, there's still all the mechanical, electrical installation that goes into the house. Right? So a house is kind of like a human person. What you see on the facade is the skin, but what's really supporting the house structure, and that's really the bones. And then what's functioning behind to support the mechanical ventilation and air conditioning, all the IT-based, Wi-Fi-based, electrical power-based systems are all kind of like your vascular system, right? So the heart of the home might be the living room, it might be the wine cellar in the basement, it could be the kitchen, it could be even the bathroom or the powder room. It all depends on the owner, such as yourself. What does your life preference dictate in there? But again, as I mentioned in the first 2 points, don't go overboard on a particular component or space such that it goes overboard and kind of puts down the value of the rest of the house, and that's the only thing that stands out in front of you. But if you're putting that focus on something that's typically what people want, like a living room, a dining area, or a family area, or a kitchen, you're quite safe, right? Okay, so I'm going to end off here, and then we'll talk a bit more about the individual spaces later in another video.